Welcome y'all to another episode of Kicking It With Show. I am your host, Show, and today I am joined by Arielle Gray, who's a Boston-based writer for mad platforms. You know what I'm saying? WBUR. She's written for Huffington Post, for Vice, just to name a few things. How you doing, Arielle?
Hey, what's up? I'm good. How you doing?
Good, chilling. Thank you very much for come kicking it with me and having this conversation and a whole bunch of shit. You know, how you doing though? Start off with that.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like every time I get asked this question or I ask this question, it's always the same reaction. Like, I feel like most people don't know how they're doing. It's like
1,000.
Moments where you're happy, moments when you're really sad, moments when you're productive, and moments when you're not. It's just this weird space to be in. I don't know.
Yeah,
Stick at home.
I feel you. 1,000.
You know?
I don't even think I've thought about if I was happy or not during this whole quarantine. You know, kind of like,
a good question.
You know, kind of like in the days, you know, because the days have just like meshed together. So I don't really know what's going on. I don't know if I'm really feeling happy. You know, I'm running around with kids. It's just like, all right, this is where we're at right now. You know, I feel like I've just adapted to the situation that I'm in and not thought about it to really like process any like new information about what my mind actually is. But that's me though. So you and I have been in the same circles for a while. We've known each other for a while. We've spoken here and there, and we've had a couple conversations on Twitter about certain things, you know, that I felt okay. That made me go, okay, Arielle, she's on the attack right now. I don't know why she's attacking me right now, but you know, I also understood what you were coming from. Like, okay, she's saying that she's, you know, culturally divided in the sense of you come from two cultures. One of your parents is Jamaican and the other one is just Black, correct?
Yeah, well, I would say, yeah. And I feel like we can even kind of like talk about, you know, that terminology, like what does it mean to be Black? So, you know, I have 2 Black parents, 4 Black grandparents. One side is from Jamaica and the other side is here in America, you know, by way of the South, by way of, you know, institutional slavery. So yes, to answer your question, two kind of different cultures, but different in a lot of ways, but also similar in more ways than they were different, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously I'm in a mixed household, color-wise and culturally. You know, so my wife is white and my kids are half Nigerian and white. So how was that for you growing up exactly when coming from those two different cultures? Like, what did you notice and what did you like raise your eyebrow at when you were growing up?
Damn. I'm like trying to sift through so many things. I feel like obviously there are the outward differences, like differences in maybe food that you're eating, music that you're listening to, maybe how you even gather as a family. But for me, I would say that, you know, on both sides, my families are close. They're pretty large, they're loud, they like to eat, they talk shit on both sides. Like, that doesn't change.
I think it's everybody's family now.
They too involved in your business, you know, but also like a lot of love. So I would say I grew up with a lot of love on both sides. So as far as differences, I feel like there is always kind of this underlying tension between different groups throughout the diaspora, depending on where you're from. And that kind of sometimes influences the way that your family may react to others or talk about others. So on both sides, you know, I've heard from Jamaicans, you know, that, you know, Black Americans don't have class, you know, no culture, things along those lines, or like no work ethic, those things. And then also you hear, you know, from on the other side, you hear people who have, you know, they're afraid of immigrants, or they have this thing against immigrants, or they're like almost, it's like a scarcity mindset where like it's like you're scared of someone else coming in and taking your shit, right? And that manifests its way differently too, I feel like, in Black Americans sometimes.
Okay.
You can see this online, like ADOS. Have you heard of ADOS?
No, who's that?
So they're like the very like extreme, and there's this whole theory about maybe they're like trolls who are white who are pretending to be Black and like trying to like stir up this movement, but it stands for American Descendants of Slavery, and they're basically these super conservative like Black people who are just don't like immigrants. Like they like their anti-immigrant stuff is just crazy. So if you ever like hashtag ADOS on Twitter and see some of the conversations that they're having, it is like, I'm like, I don't know what y'all niggas are on, but it must be some shit. So I
gotta ask you then. You know, you're very in tune with the Black diaspora and the mindset, the struggles, and all of that. How did you growing up, you know, growing from two culturally different backgrounds, like adapt? What did you go through? What were your experiences that you saw that helped you like go, oh, okay, so that's my side, and this is how I'm going to react to certain situations when it comes up?
Can you repeat that again? I think I got confused.
Okay. Obviously, I mean, you come from two different backgrounds culturally, not the skin tone. So growing up, how exactly did you figure out how to balance the two?
I don't know. I feel like it was never really something that I had to think about.
Okay.
Also, I want to be clear that like my parents weren't together growing up.
Okay.
So when I was with my dad's family, I was with my dad's family. When I was with my mom's family, I was with my mom's family. So there really wasn't any clashes. Like, I mean, my Jamaican family actually really loved my mother. And to this day, like my grandmother and my mom still talk. So there wasn't really any like tension. Again, like the differences were there, but it wasn't, I didn't feel like I really had to balance anything. It was just like I was both. Okay. And I loved being both. And it was like exciting to constantly be learning different things from my different sides of my family. You know, on my dad's side, coming from Jamaica, this is only something I'm recently getting back into, is like this very long legacy of like, I don't know, you probably see me talk about this on Twitter, but you know, I'm gonna be on my magic shit right now. But you know, like working the earth, like what does that mean? And finding out that like, you know, somebody in my family was very involved in that, even though outwardly they were very involved in the church. So things like that, but then also seeing similarities on my mom's side and like them coming from the South and also having that very long tradition of like root working and working the earth, like earth magic, to sustain Black people on like this land that they were unfamiliar with.
What does that mean? Working the earth and earth magic?
I would say I don't think it's necessarily a religion as much as it is like a practice. And it's something that I'm still myself very new to. I have friends who have really studied this shit. I'm gonna shout out Lenise, Seed of Oshun. If you're really looking to learn, she's an amazing root worker and healer here in Boston. And so I'm learning from her right now. Okay. But it's basically using what the earth has to give you for you and your people's benefit. People interpret it different ways. People are dedicated to it in different ways. But I think if you look back in the tradition of Black people, that's a constant. It's a constant. I mean, you see it in New Orleans, you see it in Haiti, you see it with the Gullah Geechee people in the South. You see it in the indigenous communities here. You see it in the Garifuna people in Central America. You see it everywhere. It's everywhere. And it predates our relationship to, I think, more modern religions that, a lot of us may be more involved with right now.
Okay. Because I'm Nigerian, and there's certain things when you say earth, studying the earth or earth magic, I automatically go to black magic. Because we have the shamans, we have the medicine man, we have the witch doctors, and to me, all those titles all fall under the same like genre to me. You're doing shit that is neither good nor bad. Is based on how you use it. You know what I'm saying? So how is this earth magic helping? How has it helped you since you started?
I think one, it's really allowed me to get in touch with the people who've come before me.
Okay.
And that's both spiritually and I guess like physically, like really going through and like reading old diaries from great grandmothers. I have an aunt who does a lot of archival research, pulling old pictures, marriage documents, letters. It's really crazy what you can really find. And for a lot of people who are Black Americans, a lot of that stuff was lost during slavery. And it's hard to really trace your lineage or your ancestry simply because people weren't being recorded or, either they just weren't being recorded, like they weren't being archived in history. So sometimes you can find a lot of good stuff. Spiritually, I mean, ancestor reverence, like, and I think, again, this is something that is pretty universal throughout a lot of cultures, especially, even like Eastern cultures, like, showing respect to your ancestors. Like, it's a thing that, it's a daily practice. And I feel like it really helps ground me, like, as I try to figure out where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you on that because back home, when I was back home, a lot of the people over there, they were trying to really get me to be like in tune with what was going on. Like my father, he would like take me to see like the shaman and just like explain certain things about our family line and everything. I mean, as a kid, I didn't really like take it too seriously. When your father, someone just talking to you about certain things, you're like, fam, why am I here right now? Like, why am I here right now, bro? Like, I don't really care about all this extra shit you're doing. But now as an adult, I'm realizing that I don't really have a true sense of what being a Yoruba man is, or what it even means to be like an immigrant. You know what I'm saying? Because I am. I wasn't born here or anything like that, but I realized that my upbringing doesn't really showcase the upbringing of that most Black people go through. Like a lot of my friends who are, who are Black, our upbringing is very, very different. And the way we turned out is very, very different. The way we handle situations is very, very different. So we had a conversation on Twitter about, the hustle mentality between African Americans and immigrants. And you threw a whole bunch of numbers at me, and explained a whole bunch of shit that I had no clue about. And first and foremost, wasn't trying to attack the Black people. It was just to explain the thought process of immigrants in the sense of where we were coming from. Not to take away from what the African American struggle is, just that from our point of view, there's a system in place that helps you guys, that helps African Americans. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of you have SNAP, you have government assistance and all of that. Back in third world countries, there is no such thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's where our mindset comes from. And yes, you guys were brought here, but we have to save up money to fly over here, which isn't cheap, and then start from scratch to become somebody in a whole nother country. So that's the mentality that immigrants come in with. That, why are these people complaining? Like, we have nothing. Like, we were walking with no shoes on type shit, all of that. To now we're richer than you are sometimes, and you're still in the same position that you were in. That's where we come from as immigrants. Like, like Black people are lazy, or Americans are lazy. Not just Black people, Americans, period, that we think are lazy. And you came at me with, there's a whole bunch of shit going on, systematic oppression, all of that. So why is it, especially coming from understanding of that you have Jamaicans. So I know you've seen how Jamaicans hustle. Not to say that the black side of you doesn't hustle, but you also saw that also. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot to say, but keep going, keep going.
No. Why is it that you take that? Why did you take that so offensively when I said that?
Because I think that it is offensive. I think that on both sides, all views are informed by anti-Blackness. Like the issue isn't Black Americans having access to SNAP and welfare, which should be offered to everybody, by the way, but that there are systems, like I said, that are in place that keep people where they are. And another thing I want to point out is that immigrant experiences are very, very different. Like, I'm sure my family's experience coming to America may be very different than your experience coming to America. Also, like, culturally, there are very many differences. And I think that even between different cultural groups, even between Black people in the Caribbean, just in the Caribbean, different groups have problems with each other, or, you know, may have something to say about a different group or their work ethic. You know, like a lot of Dominicans have stuff to say about Haitians. You know what I mean?
1,000.
But what those conversations aren't addressing is the root of all the problem, right? The problem is white supremacy. The issue isn't Black immigrants coming to America and somehow being better off than Black Americans. The issue is that we all need to be working to dismantling all of these systems at once so that there aren't these barriers to immigrants coming to America, because Black Americans don't put those barriers in place. We don't make it expensive for folks to come here and make a life. However, there are a lot of Black people who are here who are informed by anti-Black propaganda, which sends them against Black immigrants. And it all revolves around this idea of scarcity, that there's not enough of everything for everybody, and that we have to fight for it.
Okay.
And I think that's where a lot of this tension comes from. It's like anything that I do to benefit Black people is it should be benefiting all Black people across the board, no matter where you come from. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And that's the conversations that we need to be having. What are the systems that we can put in place to benefit all Black people, no matter where you're from? Because we all share one blood.
True.
We're all one blood.
True. 1,000.
You're all 1,000.
You're 1,000%. You're 1,000 correct on that. So you talk about the system, white supremacy, and everything, and I look at it like you're still trying to put a system in place for something. So the white supremacy, their system, really, what's going to be different if it's a Black system? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, sorry.
No, it's cool. I'm not saying that, you know, what you're saying is incorrect. Like there has to be some sort of order to things in society. That's just the way it is. Being free spirited and all that, that's great, but there has to be in some order of something just to keep people, you know, not to go too crazy. But at the same time, I've also learned, being that I've been around all different types of people, not just Black people. I mean, I went to high school with the Brazilians, with Dominicans, with Puerto Ricans, and everything. And I saw, and even Haitians, every West Indian, Caribbean people, most of my friends are Haitian, but they'll tell you themselves, I've been around these dudes for almost a decade, and I've not learned their language. I don't really care to learn other people's language. That's just my thing, because I have my own language. So I'm like, and I know how to speak English. It's just like, I'm cool. I don't need to know multiple. That's just my thought process. But in a sense of, I feel like every culture, no matter what culture it is, even the white people, they all have this nose up to other ethnicities, other cultures. Like, oh, my culture is better. Like, now I'm Yoruba, and there's Igbos. Yorubas think they're better than Igbos. We're all Black. Italians think they're better than Irish. They're white, still the same color, but they all look at each other. I think, to me, we just have to accept, which maybe that's just my thought process, that at some level, we're all prejudiced to some degree. Can't help it. It's the human nature of things, right?
Yeah.
So we're saying that when it comes to the mindset of hustling and, you know, being a better person, all that other shit, like actually, like, you know, becoming a great, and then looking at somebody who you grew up with and they're not there, and let that person be black or that person be African or immigrant, whatever it is. I look at it like this: you had a choice to make. Your choices didn't take you where you needed to go. My choices did. Now that could be my upbringing doing that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not judging people. I don't like to judge people too much on their upbringing, because even people who come from dirt poor, like really like horrible backgrounds, still make it to be great human beings later on. So with that being said, it's very hard for me to feel sympathetic. You know what I'm saying? Or empathetic. I don't know which one I should be feeling. I think it's empathetic towards the quote unquote African American struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand, okay, you went through shit and all of that, and because of the struggle, I'm able to live the life that I'm living now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I totally understand that, and and it means a lot. But at the same time, I can't take excuses to bettering yourself and saying, "Oh, this person is holding me back. This is because of this. This is no, 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 no. We have the same opportunities right now. We might not all have the same. We might not all have the same sources, but that doesn't mean that you still can't get it done." You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like that's the difference.
You're saying.
I feel like that's the difference between immigrants and people who already lived here.
But let me ask you something. What makes you think that Black Americans don't have hustle?
I don't think that at all. I'm giving you the immigrant mindset. I personally, Shola, do not think that at all.
Your immigrant mindset.
It's because that's what I was taught. That's what I was told, and that's what.
So where was that? Like, where was that rhetoric coming from that Black Americans don't have hustle, whatever it is that you just said?
The community that grew up around, the Nigerian community that grew up around, other communities also, not just the Nigerian community, but when it came to African Americans, it was always not disdain, but like disappointment. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the best they got type of shit. You know what I'm saying? So, but I never understood that process. I'm like, at the end of the day, if the cop pulls us over, he's not gonna give a fuck if I'm an immigrant or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In some cases, maybe.
Yeah. But that's my mindset. That's why I always looked at it like I said, my mindset is not I'm better than you because I'm an immigrant. I don't look at myself as saying I'm better than anybody. That's wild crazy to me. You know, it's like, okay, people make decisions in life. Sometimes those decisions work out. Sometimes they do not. That does not make you better than them in any sort of the way. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So that's me. But from an immigrant mindset, it's they had opportunities, they didn't take it, they're lazy. Because that was what was instilled in my mind. You know what I'm saying? But I chose to negate all of that. So when I'm speaking from an immigrant mindset, you got to understand, I'm speaking from a lifetime of being bombarded with information. Just like you were bombarded with information, and everybody's bombarded with information with Haitians, with other immigrants and stuff like that. There's information that we've all been passed down. And I honestly, I'm not mad about the information, because it's like, that's how things are being, that's how people learn things. But at the same time, it's up to the person individually to look outside of that information and see from their own personal experience. My personal experience is, it depends on who it is. I think
that's it.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, when we were talking online and your response, and I was like, I'm not coming at her. Why is she acting like I'm attacking Black people? I'm speaking from immigrant mindset. Just like, because that was the question. You know, it was like, nobody's really gonna understand the immigrant hustle because only immigrants understand that, and the reason why we push the way we push. Not to say that African Americans don't, or people who are here don't have that push, but we just feel like it's different because we literally have to grovel from the ground to a destination. You guys already kind of have African Americans, to us, to immigrants, already have a leg up. And that's what we look at it as.
Yeah, but I guess a leg up in a system that like kills Black people really isn't a leg up. It's kind of like it's kind of like what I'm saying. Like, I'm just wondering, like, what informs that rhetoric that Black Americans are lazy. And I'm not asking that to you. I'm just like, I want people to examine where they're getting this information from. Because, you know, there are millions of Black people in America. So to say that like as a group, you know what I mean, inherently like there's laziness or something, just to me it sounds crazy, especially like when you study history.
You're 1000% correct on that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I've always like, you say, you know, it's not a leg up in a sense of, because, you know, it's a system that's meant to destroy us. Cool. We don't, as immigrants, we don't give a F. We don't give a fuck about none of that. To us, even mentioning that is an excuse, because to us back home, we're getting killed by our own people anyways. So it doesn't matter who's killing us. We're gonna get killed regardless. So why not make something of it instead of keep coming back to the mindset of, oh, they're doing this to us. No, fuck all of that shit. Okay, yeah, they're doing it to us, but you can still accomplish things. You know what I'm saying?
But haven't Black Americans accomplished things though?
Oh, 1,000.
Like
1,000.
but I'm just asking, I'm thinking like when you go back 100 years, what do you think Black people were living in? Like, Black people didn't have access to hospitals. They didn't have access to paved roads. Most Black people don't have access to basic things like running water and heat.
We didn't either, but see that.
Exactly, we didn't either, right?
Yeah.
You guys didn't either, right? So
yeah.
Think about that time and what Black Americans have built in that time in this country. Where's the laziness?
Like I said, it still sounds like you're falling back. I'm once again speaking only from an immigrant. This is an immigrant talking to you, and not Shola.
No. But I'm just wondering, like, what am I falling back on?
It's the excuse.
Because like, what's the excuse?
The excuse is you're using it in every conversation. Like, yeah, we did this and a third, and we went through all this and a third. It's like, yeah, that's cool. But, you know, in third world countries, their governments are killing them, raping them, all the same shit. And we don't give a fuck about none of that. We just go, all right, cool, that's going on. But that's not.
But I know lots of immigrants who are concerned with those things and who protest those things and who work against those things, because those things aren't right. And again, all of those things are fueled by a global capitalistic system. Like, these things just don't always pop up out of nowhere. You know
no, not at all. So once again, so I'm not saying that you're wrong or anything like. It's just, I feel like we're always going to be in an impasse in this essence, because there's just that gap in understanding. Like, the comprehension, immigrant is not going to give you that, because if an immigrant gives you that, like, yeah, you're right and all of that, he's pretty much saying his entire upbringing is false.
But why is that true? Why can't both things be true at once?
Because
I've never heard this from my father, who's an immigrant, or any of my family members who are immigrants. These are things I heard in the Jamaican community as a whole. But as far as my family, I've never heard.
See, my family, I've heard it. I've heard it in my family. You know what I'm saying? I've heard my family has told me growing up, don't be like them. You know what I'm saying? Don't be, in our term, don't be that. Don't be an akata. You know what I'm saying? That's a Black man. That's our term. You know what I'm saying? That's equivalent to a white person calling a Black person nigga.
But what about all of the Black people, Black Americans, like, in your playlist though?
Oh,
or, you know, like
I said, like I've already said,
the Black authors that we're reading,
everything.
You don't want to be like them. Like, that just is crazy to me. We should all want to be crazy. Like each other.
Exactly. So this was my thought process growing up. Is like, I hear you, I hear you, family. You know what I'm saying? I hear what you're saying, but you're not really living. Mind you, I'm a kid now, and I'm surrounded by Blacks, Asians, every other culture I'm surrounded by it. They're not. They're only surrounded by their own communities. A lot of immigrants only stay in their communities. The Nigerian community stays together. The Asian community stays together. Not that they don't experience other cultures, but it's usually in a work environment, unless they're like a new millennial type shit. But the old timers, like my parents and stuff, they don't do that. You know what I'm saying? But for me, growing up, I was around everybody, so I saw the similarities and the differences. But there's more similarities than there are differences. The only difference might be the way your parents raised you, and everybody's family dynamic is very different.
Yes.
So that's the only place where I go, all right, we're like different, and is the family dynamic. So for me, for sure, I look at it like, when I heard hip hop, it was when I came here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love my African music, my Afro beats and all that shit, but hip hop is what speaks to my soul. But I wasn't born here. That's an American thing. You know what I'm saying? Rap was developed here. So when I came here and I first heard DMX, that spoke to my soul. When I first heard Jay, that spoke to my soul. You know, I got in trouble in my house listening to these guys. And to this day, I'm in this media game now. All I listen to is hip hop and R&B, and barely any of my cultural music like that, because it doesn't speak to my soul the way hip hop does. You know what I'm saying? So in my culture, when they speak on things like this, I always ask them the same question: why do you think you're really different? Because you came here and did this, that, and a third, or you're taking care of family? Well, these situations all vary, because I do know Black people who have elevated and done things for their families and taking care of other people too. So and there's people in our family who don't do shit. So what's the real difference? This is me speaking now. So that's been my mindset growing up. It's like, we're not that different. You just want to feel superior for some reason. Like he was saying, that's the white supremacy in us before. Like, wanting to feel like we're better than each other, when really there's only one person that's kind of in our ass about shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying. That's all I was saying on that Twitter conversation we're having. It's just that it's not that immigrants don't like African Americans. They just think that they work harder, which obviously is a general statement. You know what I'm saying? But that's what's been passed down to us growing up. It's like, we work harder. We know, you can say, they're saying is Haitians got like 5-10 jobs. Oh, Jamaicans has like 5-10 jobs because we never stop doing anything. I personally think that's crazy to have that many jobs, you know, but if you have to do it, you have to do it.
But that's the thing. That's the thing, is like, it's like when you judge somebody based on how valuable they are to a system that's it's meant to exploit you. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they're exploiting you. They're exploiting your labor. So when you start basing people's worth off of the system, you're always going to be pitted against somebody. I mean, it's the same thing in this country when you look at racial dynamics between poor whites and poor Blacks. It's like the government took advantage of this anger that these poor whites had in not having shit. Before, there was actually a good amount of class solidarity between poor Blacks and poor whites. The government took that and used it to their advantage, and they created this they emphasized this racial divide instead of a class one. So instead of encouraging or wanting to work with other poor Black people to better everyone, you know, the poor whites thought that somehow Black people were impeding their road to success or their road to wealth, and that they were just lazy and didn't want shit, and that's why they were where they were. Meanwhile, the poor whites are still fucking poor. And who's laughing? The rich white man at the top. And that's always the case. That's always the case when you base somebody's worth off of being able to work. Like, you're right. No, nobody should be working that many jobs. If we had a system that supported people, you wouldn't have to. You know what I'm saying? You would be able to concentrate on the things that really matter, right? And that's what I want for everybody. That's what I want for everybody who looks like us, is that ability and that freedom to be true to yourself and to create and to live a life where you're not breaking your back to put food on the table. That don't make sense.
Do you think that's possible in the American society?
I think that's like, that's a whole question that I may not even have enough information to really answer fully, because it's beyond an ideal. It's like it's scientific how these systems work, and so when you dismantle something, you have to replace it with something. I think there are a lot of good examples of like community care, but then you have to understand that America has literally redefined how we thought of community. You know what I mean? For a lot of Afro diasporic people, we came from the community, everybody looking out for everybody's kids. You know what I'm saying?
Very
Like,
true.
if you got to go to work and you don't have somebody to watch your kids, your cousin across the street will, or across the way can watch your kids. Oh, you don't have food? All right, this person's going to bring some over for you. We come from that background of community care, and we've been separated into thinking that no, the way to go is my individual wealth, my individual gain, and not community care. So it's like, to even answer that question, it's like it's sociology, it's law, it's politics, it's economics, like it's.
So based off of that, right? I don't know how. Okay, so I don't know how old you are, but when I was growing up, right? Like you said, there was community, right? There was community. Everybody knew everybody in the neighborhood and all of that. So you help each other out. I felt like after like maybe 2008, 2009, I started seeing less of the community based behavior. Now I have kids now, and there's rarely. I used to be left alone at the park. Now parents are there at the park. I never saw growing up anybody's parents at the park. It was just kids there and everything, and we was having a good time. If shit was going down, we all knew where to go. People knew how to move.
Right.
But now
And
it's
your
like,
older cousins was probably watching you.
exactly. And now I don't see any of that. So where do you think, from your perspective, society shifted to being so singular?
I don't know. And I mean, I think that it's been happening for a really long time. But you're right. Like, I do feel like growing up, it definitely felt more like, even living here, I've lived in Mattapan my whole life pretty much. And it's like, the people around you. If somebody's at your door that they don't know, they're calling you to let you know. Like, I had my neighbor across the street call me when there was a shooting and tell me not to come home, So it's like, yeah, I don't know, like, what I think people, again, it's like you're encouraged to look out for self. I think a lot of that is being combated, and a lot of like I hate using the word activism, but I would say organizing work that I see, community organizing work, where it's like you have to care about more yourself. Have to care more about more than just yourself. You have to care about the person next to you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what it is. I feel like people, again, it's the scarcity mindset, like this fear that you're going to lose what you got and that you won't have enough to get by. When in reality, there's not a scarcity of resources. There's like a hoarding of resources. There's
Major
a hoarding of money that leaves the rest of us ass out at the end of the day.
You are one of the few people that I have noticed that speaks on mental illness a lot. I didn't grow up around a lot of it. When I did see mental illness, it was in classes. Kids to me, mental illness was just like kids in a short bus. Just to be frank, that's what it was. That's what it was to be. That's what I understood. They were the people that I looked out for in me growing up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, if they're around, we got to be careful how we maneuver, because we're not too sure. I'm not too sure how they operate. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how their mind works. So if you don't mind me asking, what mental illness do you have exactly?
I'm glad you started off with that, actually, short bus analogy, because I think it's really important that people expand what they think of when they think of someone living with a mental illness.
Yeah.
I have bipolar disorder.
Okay.
I've written about it a lot. It's been a work in progress. You know, there are good times and bad times, obviously.
Is there like types of bipolarism?
Yes.
Okay.
There are a couple of different types, and these types of things are always changing according to there's this huge book that basically outlines all of the mental illnesses, mental disorders, but bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and then there are also people who experience a lot of what's called rapid cycling. So
Okay.
it may be where perhaps you don't fall in either category. I think bipolar 2 is often seen as being the less severe form, you know. So some people, the basis is that you have these periods where you're manic and then where you're depressed, and that there really is no in between, that you're constantly in between these two very disparate emotional states. And that's what causes you know, that's what causes the problems, is like being here, being back down here, being back up here. So I would say like that's kind of like the overall basis of the disorder.
Okay, because I was watching a show called Dave on FX, and one of the first few episodes, his hype man is bipolar, and
I heard about that actually.
Yeah, so he had episodes, and I mean, watching the episodes, and he did a great job acting them out, you know.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I've never personally seen somebody who's bipolar. I've seen it in movies and stuff like that, but this felt more real. You know, like it wasn't exaggerated. It's like he had done his homework, and the way he went from, and then when he got on the medicine, on the pills and stuff like that, help him out, it just really threw him off completely. Like he couldn't do his job anymore. So have you had to go through those kind of like transformations where you have to figure out what medicine helps you out from not going too off kilter?
Yeah, and I think it's important because I think the way that it's portrayed on bipolar disorder, people think of that dude from fucking Empire, like, who is just like the son of Lucius, and he's and he's just fucking crazy. Like,
he
I'm
got
like,
two people in him.
Just
He's not that's like a psycho. He got another person in him, you know, on top of his own shit. You know?
I saw that where the grandmother like sees the spirit and she's like, "You're not my grandson." And then
it's wild shit,
whatever.
You know?
It's just wild. It's just so dramatized, and like for some people that maybe their experience living with bipolar disorder or another mental disorder, or even I don't know if you've seen Shameless, the movie, Aaron, who's bipolar, and he's a little bit more realistic, but again, kind of like to the extremes, like. He's still someone's baby, and
like he can't take care of himself.
In the car. Yeah, he can't take care of himself. Again, for some people, that is for severe cases, that's very, very real.
Yeah.
But again, it's the fact that the media constantly puts it out there as if it's just like this one thing, when in reality, it can be any types of ways. You know what I mean? It can manifest itself in very different ways for different people, depending on where they are in their life, depending what type of emotional stressors they have. Why are you coming down here? My dog, his big ass. Stop. Okay. So, yes, I have had that happen to me. Actually, when I was in college, I fell into a really, really deep depression, I would say my sophomore year. Like, and when I say deep, I mean I was sleeping all day. I wasn't going to class. I was suicidal. You just can't do nothing for yourself, really, when you're in these really dark states. And I got to a point where essentially I was gonna get kicked out of school because I was failing all my classes. And I had gone to see someone at Harvard Vanguard up there in Fenway because I went to BU. And I saw a psychiatrist, this white woman, and she immediately told me that I was depressed and put me on Prozac to treat the depression. And that sent me into such a dark place that I ended up having to drop out of school, move back home with my mom in Georgia. And I stayed back in Georgia for months. It took me months to recover, to get well enough to try to go back to school. So the issue was, she prescribed me the wrong thing because I wasn't depressed. I was in a depressive episode. I'm bipolar. I need something that is going to not just treat depression, but it's also going to treat mania. And a lot of times when people go to see people in the mental health field, and now my grandmother is a therapist. She's a doctor.
Okay.
And so when I told her what happened, she took me up there to Harvard Vanguard and was about to have that woman fired, because the way, especially for people of color, the way that they interact with mental health professionals, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And I would say, I would just say the whole experience was horrible. It was horrible.
That's crazy.
Horrible.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I've heard that too. Like when it comes to medication, anything like for people of color, it's just like a bad experience all the way through. It's like if you don't have a Black doctor or somebody of your nationality that understands and actually really cares about looking into what's really going on with you, you're fucked.
Yep. And also cultural differences
too.
There are so many cultural differences. Black people tend to, especially if you're a Black person, and beyond being Black, I mean, there are so many different types of Black people, and how we all express our pain is very different. So, a lot of times, a Black person may describe depression in physical symptoms. So the doctor is going to prescribe you these medications for your physical symptoms, not realizing that this person is depressed. They need therapy. Even I'll point you to Teresa Alphonse, who is the director of What's on Your Mind. And she does a lot of work with POC communities in mental health care. She wrote a thing about, Teresa.
Yeah, she's the homie. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm on the board of What's on Your Mind. So we focus on POC mental health care. She wrote a whole piece about medications not being tested on people of color. So they don't even know if these medications are working for people of color. We're not even the standard for medications. So you have to think about all these things when somebody's prescribing you something. And
so everything is just generalized, no matter what. For Asians, for Spanish people, everything is just generalized medicine.
Right. Yes. Okay. Based on, I mean, they're going to take things into consideration. If you have a family history of high blood pressure, they're probably not going to prescribe you a certain medication. Or, if you're allergic to penicillin, or if you're, considered overweight, they may not prescribe you, but they're not taking into account race as an identity, or race as something that has a physical impact on you, because it does. And we know that it does. It's proven scientifically. People of color face a lot of things that impact our health. And it's been that way. So, the piece that Teresa wrote kind of outlined just how sometimes medication may not even work on us. We don't know, because they're not made for us, know?
Yeah, no, I went through, there's a family member that went through, I guess bipolar. I'm not even too sure. I think she gives out an episode or whatever, but like, and my parents are in the medical field, but I felt like the cultural aspect kicked in, and they didn't really exactly know how to deal with it, and neither did I, because when I went to go visit them in the I guess in the hospital, whatever, I said, yo, you need to get over this shit. Like, I don't know, fuck you doing, but all that shit gotta cut out. Not understanding, it wasn't until years later that I understood I came off way too aggressive with somebody who's going through something that I don't understand. So for me, it was more like, yo, I've been in your shoes. What the fuck are you doing? Like, come on, man up, stop fucking with
Yeah.
all this extra shit. And
Yeah.
then understanding that the chemicals in our bodies and brains is different. We all respond differently to the same type of situations. Same thing can happen to you and I, and our responses is very, very different. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Especially for
Yeah.
somebody who's
Yeah.
like bipolar or going through some other sort of mental illness. So how would you
Yeah.
go ahead?
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with everything
Okay.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you like moving forward tell people like, hey, listen, just because somebody has a mental illness does not mean like they're sick or anything like that, or like they can't have like a regular life, because you obviously live a very regular life. You know, how is it that what's something that you would tell people that and helps to help them cope with the person that they're dealing with who does have a mental illness?
I would always say that your personal experience is never universal. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I would say start off from a place of understanding that what you've done and the choices that you've made are, again, driven by you. You're not, your experiences aren't a universal thing. And I think when people center themselves in this, it becomes a lot easier to become empathetic for other people,
Okay.
because you realize that life hits you with shit differently and you deal with it differently. I think also too, remembering that everything on this planet is biodiverse. And by that, I mean that within every species, each animal is different. Nothing is born the same. And so I would say that it's natural for people to have brains that work differently, just as natural as it is for people to have bodies that look different. You know, our brains are all different. And so remembering that, and remembering that sometimes people's brains need help, you know, and that's fine. Just like you may need help with your heart or your blood pressure or your diabetes, somebody's brain may need help. I've also seen a lot of conversations where people think that, you know, oh, you know, medication is bad, use natural means to treat mental illnesses. I think there's this divide because it kind of comes off as like demeaning people with mental illness, as in like not treating it as if it's something real. Some people would be like, oh, you know, beat depression by going for a walk in the woods. Like, no, that's not
it's not it.
That's not it, right?
That's not it, yo.
Right. But that's not to say that those things don't help. So I think always remembering that, you know,
a combination
there
works.
are both. A combination can work for a lot of different people. Personally, me, I haven't felt the need for meds for a little while, but there are times where, you know, I'm like, you know what, it may have to be an option for me, and that's fine. And it's something that I know I'll probably have to live with the rest of my life, and that's okay, because my brain is my brain. Like, I can't do anything to and I don't even know if I would want to change it. You know what I mean? It's made me who I am, and it's the reason I am here today. Like, so I just have to realize that it's something that somebody's going to be living with for a long time.
Yeah.
So your cousin, you know, that's something that she's or whoever it was, yeah, you know, she's going to have to be managing this for the rest of her life. It's like any other long-term condition that you have. It's something that, you know, she may slip up and have a bad period, and you know, she may be fine for a really long time and may have another bad period.
You just never know.
You just never know. And I think just like being supportive, and also realizing that sometimes you don't always have to say things to comfort people. Sometimes it just means listening and being there. Sometimes we don't know how to comfort people who are in extreme states of distress or grief or depression, and we don't have the words, but sometimes silence is just as good. And just physically being there and showing up. I think a lot of people get intimidated. Oh, I don't know how to show up for this person. Show up in the ways that you can and be honest about your capacity, you know, but being physically with someone is really good. I think it's something that everybody can like offer, but I think they feel like they're like almost scared because they don't know how,
Yeah, nobody knows how to
to,
actually maneuver that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
My last question on this is, you said earlier that you haven't had to use any medicine for a while. I guess, yeah, my question definitely is, how do you know? Like, is it like you've reached a point where you can't take it no more, or like you feel like something's going to trigger you soon, depending on the state that you're in mentally?
Yeah, I think for me, it becomes noticeable when I'm not able to. I still have like states of like highs and lows, like
Yeah.
very often, but I'm at a point in my life where I kind of am able, I know when it's going to happen, and I have the tools that I need to manage it. Sometimes when it gets to a point where I feel like I can't manage it, or my lows are getting too low, and maybe my triggers are more frequent, or becoming like like it's less and less to trigger me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it becomes a point where, okay, like I'm actually probably gonna have to like address this either with, I would probably start, for me right now, going back to therapy before getting back on medication. It's like a process. Also, you have to realize medication's not like it's not a panacea. It's not just gonna fix it. It's like, it's a lot of work. You really have to dedicate yourself to going to therapy.
Did you sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Did you I thought that was it, but I guess my last question definitely is, when did you accept that, all right, sometimes I have to definitely use pill, I have to use medication? Like, when did you accept that side of you growing up, like, damn, I'm really gonna have to do this? Because I know from what I've seen, my own personal experiences, it's never like an easy thing, like, oh, I'm really gonna have to take medication to help this out. So what was your turning point? Like, okay, cool, I have to accept that I have to get help sometimes from medication.
I think it would probably be like in my early 20s, when after that whole incident with me at college, whatever, I ended up coming back to Boston, tried to go back to school, it didn't end up working out. I dropped out and started working just full time. And I think I just was in a state again where it was just like, it got really bad and I couldn't handle it myself. I'm avoiding talking about certain things because I don't want to like trigger anybody who happens to watch this.
Yeah.
But let's just say that there were some situations where, it was like kind of mandated for me, in order for me to get better, like I was mandated to go to therapy and to take part in what needed to happen to get me back on track. Okay. So that was a point where I realized that things had gotten like out of control. Okay. And
it's been a long process ever since.
Yeah, again, it's something that, it's something for some people, it works really well for them and they have a good reaction to it. For other people, like you said, that kid on the show, and for me, like, it makes you feel like a zombie. Like, it doesn't make you feel like yourself. You feel like you still end up feeling like shit somehow, which is crazy because it's supposed to stabilize your mood, but then you're like, you don't feel like you.
Yeah, it was up and down.
You don't feel like you, and like you feel like a shell or like a corpse. And it's like, what's better, like living life as you, or living life as just like
a zombie?
Yeah. And so some people, if that's their experience, that's why they choose to go off their meds.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we're in the same circle, in certain circles, where this is my first time as an adult where I'm surrounded by the LGBTQ community heavily, and you speak on it a lot in papers you've written in the trans community and all of that, especially for the for POC, people of color. I've never had to really think about caring about them because I never asked anybody about what they were sexually. No, you know what I'm saying? That's never been part of a conversation that I ever brought up. Anybody's ever brought up to me. It's always been like, nobody's ever said, "Hey, I'm gay. I'm Gary. I'm gay." And it's like, okay, bro, that was not. I didn't need that intro. you know. But I've also noticed that is how in our circle a little bit people introduce themselves like that, or like their pronouns and stuff like that. All those things are new to me. You know, it never even crossed my mind. So I wanted to understand from a person who is new into this community, into this world, like, not that, why should I care? You know what I'm saying? What you like, that's what you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm out with you, anything like that, what is it supposed to like signify for me, who doesn't go around saying, hey, I'm straight?
Yeah, I think when you examine what you're talking about, like people, you feeling like people are more forthright about how they identify their
Yeah.
pronouns. I think it's because of like the conversations that we're having right now, and I actually think it's because people don't know how to sometimes interact with queer and trans people, and so.
But they're people, y'all. But they're people. I mean, they still bleed the same blood. So what makes it? I'm speaking from a person for
Yeah,
information
but I'm
words. Who
saying
wants to learn?
that the experience isn't always that way. There are people who judge you based on how you identify.
Very true. Okay.
You know, so, and it actually it's dangerous for people to do that. It's dangerous for someone to, you know, come up to somebody, like you were saying, hi, I'm Gary, I'm gay. Like, that's a danger for a lot of queer and trans people, depending on where they are. And so I think now that these conversations are becoming more, I guess, mainstream, now there's this opportunity to have people engage with these identities that folks have, you know, been persecuted for, and feel
So
like they're not able to openly share these parts of themselves.
So it's more of like a freedom thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like, I mean, I know, you know, you're from Nigeria, my family's Jamaican, like, you can still get killed there for
1,000.
being outwardly gay.
1,000.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Like, and it can be very dangerous. I mean, I even heard stories back home of these people who tried to mob these two lesbians on the beach. They
Yeah.
were at a beach at a resort. You know, so it's like, even when you think about it in that term, it's kind of it's kind of powerful to see people being able to reclaim their identity as something that drives like their work or their politics, or, you know, drives their art form.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, because, you know, there are still and here being one of those places where it's dangerous to be outward about how you identify.
Yeah. So that's what it is for me, because I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness household. You know what I'm saying? And to me, a lot of those, people who judge heavily are religious. They have a Christian background or some religious background where that's frowned upon. And I grew up just like, all right, what people's sexual preference, this is, is none of my business. I don't personally care what if you meet me and you're like, oh, this is my partner, so and so, I'm gonna go, okay. But I know that other people's responses aren't really like that, especially if it's like a dude saying this is their boyfriend. To me, I don't care. Like, all right, that's your man. That got nothing to do with me personally. But I also understand that other people don't look at it like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, as POCs, what can we do as people coming in who don't really have an understanding? Like, I don't, but I also don't judge. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't personally have an investment in your sexual life, so I don't care. It ain't me you sleeping with. That's my mentality. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, do your thing. That got nothing to do with me. So, but for people who have this mindset that they have to judge, especially people of their own color, what would you have to say for them? Like, it helps in a way to help them like navigate that process to understanding what's going on around them.
I feel like all the things I would suggest would be things, but here's the first thing, is that for all those people who are judgmental,
Yeah.
I'm telling all of y'all, you have someone who is quear or maybe even trans, in your family, in your lineage somewhere. It's like, it's not something new, it's not going nowhere. Okay, like, I hate when people, not talking to you, show, I'm talking to people,
Oh, I'm cool.
like,
I'm cool.
It's not this new thing. Like, yes, you may be seeing more of it because people feel more comfortable, but it's not something new. Like, let me tell you, like, the archives prove it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
So I think for them, like, understanding that this isn't something new, it's just that now people have more pathways to express themselves. And then I think also understanding why somebody else expressing themselves, why do you have a problem with it? What is it triggering in you that somebody is happy living their life the way that they do? Why does that trigger you? That sounds like more of like a you problem and
1,000.
not like a everybody problem. I would also say that again, realizing that you have queer people who identify all sorts of ways in your family tree or in your family, you just don't know it because they feel like they have to hide it.
I don't want to cut you off, right? So I don't want to cut you off, but I want to get a clear distinction of certain terms, right? So queer, you always, you refer to that a lot. Is that what you identify as?
Yes.
Okay. And why, and what is a queer actually like symbolize or indicate as?
I think the beautiful thing about it is that it's really fluid, and I think it encapsulates a lot. I think people who are lesbian may feel like they can claim the word queer. Some lesbians don't claim the word queer. They feel like they're just lesbians, like they just like women. Bisexual people claim the word queer. I know of some men who are gay who claim the word queer. I think queer can mean a lot of different things, and it's more than just your sexual preference. It's also like your gender identity. So there's some people who may identify as genderqueer where they feel like they may identify as more than one, or they can kind of go back and forth. It's something that's on a spectrum.
Time out. What do you mean more than one? Like more than one person? Is that like a personality thing or like?
No, it's an expression thing.
Okay.
That's how you express yourself. And really that's what gender is. And I'm not going to say, because we could get into a whole debate about biology.
Don't confuse me too much. I'm a simpleton.
Yeah, but, and also like, I don't have all the language. Like I haven't studied biology. I can't get into that, but I think everything is on a spectrum. My grandmother explains this better than I do. So when you think of sexuality, it's on a spectrum. Some people fall in the middle. Some people fall over here. Other people fall over here. Some people may stay where they are. They may never waver throughout their life. But then there are other people who may in their life find themselves kind of coming over here on this side of the spectrum. Or people who are over here coming back over here on this side of the spectrum. It's something that is fluid. It's not just a binary. And I think that's kind of like the basis of the term, is this room for freedom and expression and nuance, really. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Because man, when I'm around you guys and y'all are talking, I'd be like, man, I don't understand what the fuck is going on over here. Like, this is
I think it's okay to ask. It's totally okay to ask. Which is why some people, but that's why, when some people put their pronouns out there, it's like, think of it as like a service, because they know that people may feel uncomfortable asking them what their pronouns are. So it's like, hey, I don't want you to have to do that labor. Here are my pronouns so that you know exactly what to call me. So that's kind of what is going on when people, when you say are outwardly identifying, they're trying to help people learn how to interact with them in a way where you can get quicker to the conversation when it's just out there, it's overt, and how to, what someone's pronouns are.
Yeah, because honestly, if somebody tells, if I'm looking at you, like right now, to me, you're a woman, right? And you say, hi, my name is Steve. I'm gonna go, all right, what up, Steve? Like, whatever, fam. Like, who am I to say that you're not Steve? You know what I
Well,
mean?
or I could say my name is Arielle. My pronouns are he, him,
Yeah.
or my pronouns are they, them. You know.
So I was told that pronoun he, him, and if you're a woman, it's more of like a masculine type of expression. Like you express yourself masculinely. Is that correct? Some of
When
your
someone has
manners,
he.
like if like you, Ariel, telling me my pronouns are he, him, does that mean that your expressions, your mannerisms, the way you, the energy you put out might be more masculine?
No, not necessarily, because I know a lot of masculine presenting women who you wouldn't know that they weren't a dude until they opened their mouth, and their pronouns are
I don't.
she, hers. Like
I
they
don't
would
even
never
know.
be called he, him.
I don't even know what that
What?
even means. What you just said.
What? Butch?
Okay.
Butch?
Okay. All right. See, I understand that, but when you explained it, I was just like, oh, I don't know where that went, because you started off with some girls might put out masculine, but I would never know that if they're a woman, right?
No, what I'm saying is that how someone presents themselves isn't
Yeah.
necessarily indicative of the pronouns that they want to use. So I was using an example of like Queen Latifah and set it off. Like she was a butch ass woman. You know,
1,000.
you would say that she's very masculine in the way
Yeah.
that she presents her energy, the way she's grabbing her woman, making
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
you
1,000.
know, like
She was in charge.
whatever. Right. But
Yeah.
her like she didn't necessarily have he, him pronouns. So I was just using that as an
Okay.
example that, you know, it's not how somebody appears. Is, you know, it's always okay to ask someone like, you know, what are your pronouns? It's totally fine. I feel like it's a question that everybody is asking, and it's kind of like a sign of respect. Like, I want to respect
Yeah.
how you
1,000.
identify.
Yeah.
Tell, you know, like, what are your pronouns? So I was just using that example that, you know, it's not like, oh, I see you and you have so quote unquote like manly mannerisms, so
Mm.
you know, you must be a man. You can't,
Oh no,
you
no, no,
know,
no, no, no. That's not
can't.
what I meant by that. That's not what I meant by that. I just mean like what I was told about a woman who identifies with the he him type of pronouns is saying about their energy might be masculine. That's why they're saying that they're he him. So that's why I was asking it to separate
Oh
the two.
yeah, I see
That's what I
what you
mean.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think that's always true. And then that person would probably argue that they're not a woman if they're using he/him pronouns.
Oh, okay. Learn something new. All right.
You
Cool.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, this is
I
all
would
because
say that argument.
yeah, nah, 1,000 because my thing is
Yeah.
to be respectful in this industry that I'm in, because in my in my day to day, I'm a carpenter. I don't deal with this. You know what I'm saying? Any other jobs that I've had growing up before I entered this game, I never dealt with the LGBT community heavy. You know what I'm saying? Nobody openly said they were this, that, and the third. I didn't interact with them, or I didn't even know because they never told me or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And we used to say wild shit, you know, back then. Obviously now people are more sensitive to situations, but now that I'm in this circle with you guys, I want to be very conscious and clear about how I'm presenting myself to you guys, so it's not coming off disrespectful, because I don't know
Yeah.
everything either. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah. And I think that's the step that everybody, like, as a start can, it's like, recognize that, you know, like, you have, like, we're all students and we're all teachers,
yeah,
and the way that you learn is by putting yourself in student mode and like asking people to teach you. So if you know, if you don't understand something, or if you need clarification, or you want to learn more about something, you know, you can always ask someone. Not saying that they're required to do that labor, but I feel like a lot of people are always open to having conversations, or explaining their experiences so that you can better understand.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I would say that, you know, for anybody who's looking to, I guess, like, engage with queer and trans communities of color, it's just like, one is just listening to us, and, you know, like, staying open to learning, and like realizing that this is a process. We all have a lot of stuff that we have to unlearn, like, across the board. So
across the
just
board.
realizing that,
Yeah.
yeah, across the board, and just realizing that it's a process, and that you know, I feel like asking is always a good way to go. because it lets people know that you're open to learning. And that's the biggest part, is that so many people just aren't open to learning.
Yeah, nah,
And that's what creates these divides.
I think if you're in this game in any situation in life, when you are experiencing new environments and all, like I am, this is a new environment for me, and it's been enlightening because I've had people in my circle who I'm close to, who I'm friends with now, who have explained things to me, showing me things, helping me out when I mess up. You know what I'm saying? When I'm, being, too abrasive about things and not being sensitive to the situation or the people that's in my vicinity. Because that's something that grown up, I never really cared about, was like, fuck who's next to me. Like, I'm always going to be who I am, not realizing that me being myself doesn't have to hurt the other person. It's not about me negating who I am. It's about understanding the sensitivity level of the other person. It's like caring, pretty much. Just giving a fuck a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Giving a fuck, like having empathy and realizing that, like what you do has an impact on people, and your actions can hurt others. And
I will say this though. I am upset. You guys took a couple good words from me that I used to use. I used to make a lot of sense. You know
what? I feel like the language, 2 languages. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure, the imagination is boundless. There are other words that people are going to come up with.
Of course. But, some words just fit right. You just be like, oh, I know I can't say this. This is crazy. Come on, man. I'm too sensitive. But like, what's going? It's a joke. I don't mean it. I ain't talking about you, but I totally understand it.
Yeah.
You are somebody that in the city of Boston, people know you for your level of writing, your vision, your artistry. You've written for multiple platforms, huge platforms in the city. So how have you transitioned from each platform to help you improve your art?
I don't know. This is a hard question, because I'm like, at this very moment, I'm really trying to figure out where I'm going with this, because the state of journalism is just crazy.
It's nuts.
So I feel like each time I just got better from all the times I got rejected, because I got rejected a lot. A lot. I still get rejected. I cried a little bit. I got rejected twice this week, a pitch that I really cared about and that, I really want to write about, but it got rejected twice. So I think learning how to deal with rejection is something that has allowed me to make my writing better, because with rejection comes creativity. You have to get creative when you get rejected if you're still going to try to get to your goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to develop perseverance when you get rejected.
A whole lot of backbone.
Right. So that has helped me push my limits as a writer, to push myself as a writer, in recognizing maybe, maybe maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Like, maybe I really need to work on my craft, which is like, when I look back at how I was writing a couple years ago, I'm like, ew, like, what was I doing? What was I doing? This is a mess.
Like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this? But I'm grateful that I was there, because that means I was learning something, and that's how I got to. And I'm sure that in 5-10 years, I'm going to look back on the stuff I was writing today and be like,
yeah, like, what was this?
What are you doing? Right, exactly. So yeah, just always realizing that this is a process, and that also talent is not something that you just have. It's a muscle that you have to constantly work.
Yeah.
And you can get lazy with talent, and everything can pass you by.
Oh.
And so like, really realizing that, being upset at my own self when I didn't get to where I wanted to go, instead of blaming other people. You know what I mean? Like, really having to own your shit. Like, oh, my pitch didn't get accepted because I didn't take enough time to write it. Like, I don't have anybody to blame but myself.
1,000. Yeah, that's how I feel about like this show, this Kicking It With show. Like, I was doing it like religiously when I first started, and then things got really busy, and I just fell off completely. you know, and then coming back and starting to do it over, I realized I had become comfortable in my other platforms and how I did things. Now figuring this out again, it's like it's been a huge learning curve because my mind is just like, all right, you carry all of this. You know what I'm saying? You can't point fingers at nobody, like you were saying. Like you would have to, you know, follow through and present this. And if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, you're gonna have this kind of days. You kind of like roll with the punches. You know, in this pandemic that we're in, right? Just to wrap it up, how have you stayed or tried to stay like creative or even inspired, really? Because all of us are in the house, we're not really doing too much. You know, how are you really staying inspired to even like continue?
Am I? I don't think I am. I don't know. And I think this is a good tip and trick for creatives out there.
A tip and trick?
Tip and trick, yes.
Okay.
At the same time. Is start small. Sometimes the worst thing about us creatives is that we get this spark of inspiration and we like see it in our head, right? And then when what we make doesn't amount to that vision, we stop or we get discouraged, or sometimes we don't even know how to begin. And it's like, start small with something that's going to help you get those creative juices running again. So even if that just means if you're a writer, make sure that you're journaling every other night on a consistent basis if you haven't been writing. If you're a painter, you know, start back with, you know, just, I don't know, outlining the room again if you haven't painted for a while. Like sometimes you need to like get the juices running again. Before it really gets you in a creative mode. But also too, remembering that your worth is not tied to your output or your productivity or your creativity, that you are not defined by that. So if you're not creating anything, don't feel like it makes you less of what you are. This is a crazy ass time and you are not required to be producing creative content on top of just trying to live life in a fucking pandemic, right? Like,
because
you know,
man, I mean, sometimes it's very hard for me to find stimuli to even like envision anything. You know, sometimes I'll sit in front of my computer and I'm like, all right, let's come up with something, and nothing will come to mind. I'm not, like I was saying earlier, I don't even know if I've been feeling a lot of my emotions lately, you know, because it's like, what time do I have to really like, I don't want to sit with my emotions. I've never been one to sit with my emotions. Nowadays, it's like my body wants to sit with them, but I'm like, nah, fam, I don't really got time for all that. But I got nothing but time, but I'm trying to find things to express my emotion in my own creative way, you know, but it's hard, you know, especially when you're used to being outside. Like a lot of my stimuli comes from interacting outside and going through experiences. I'm not experiencing anything.
What's your sign?
Oh, I'm a Capricorn. What's yours?
I'm a Taurus.
So why'd you ask me about my sign?
No, I was just wondering.
And why are you wondering?
Capricorns, you're an earth sign.
Yeah. Am I? I don't know. Am I? You're telling me.
You're an earth sign. I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me look at it. I'm pretty sure Capricorns are earth signs.
You gotta get to the nitty-gritty.
Sagittarius.
That's crazy. Sign. I don't know what any of that means.
I'm telling you. So, yep, you're an earth sign, like Taurus. Usually, earth signs were productive, sensual, and stubborn.
1,000.
But also, like, you feeling like you need to be outside to be stimulated is very normal for earth signs because we're connected to the earth.
Yeah. 1,000. I can't.
Your house.
I picked up so many projects in my house. Shout out to my wife. She's been giving me mad shit.
Working with your hands.
Yeah. I mean, I work my hands normally, but it's like, all right, let's go do this. Let's build a fire pit. You know, let me go put my studio in the shed. Let me do all this, that, and the third. Anything just keep me actively moving. You know, I found that actually going for walks has helped me. You know, like clear my head and like see things. You know, and I love watching people run by. I don't know. I love people watching. So that's been helping a lot.
There's actually an article. I'll send it to you. There's an article about like that brain fog that everybody is having. Yeah. And there's like a scientific reason for it.
I will say
I'll
this
send it
though.
to you afterwards.
One of the things that I found fascinating about you is you love information. You love information and you love to give it out. So like when I first met you and I was listening to you talk, you and amongst everybody else that in that same realm as you, I was intrigued because I didn't understand it. It's like, why do you care so much about what's on this paper instead of, I guess I took the fact that you are so heavily influenced by information that experiences don't mean much to you.
Oh no, I would say when was this?
No, this is off my first impression because when any conversation I had with somebody, if they start rambling off numbers to me, it's like I'm now in a test. It's like, okay, I was just talking life. You're not bringing out a book to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't come here to talk to you about what the book said. I wanted to know what you felt about life through your own experiences. You know what I'm saying? Because which I also understand in the conversations that you do have, sometimes you do have to pull out information that is necessary to the conversation. You know what I'm saying? But for me, somebody who doesn't know all that information, it's like, yo, we were just having like a regular convo. Now I'm in now I'm in history class. Like, what's going on? What's going on here?
Yeah, you are, because you have to, for me, it's really important to realize that in most of these books that I'm sourcing from or that I'm reading are written by people who are living our experiences. And it's the reason why they have to do this work. It's the reason why they have to keep track of these numbers, because nobody else is. So the information is rooted in this work of capturing what our communities are going through, and putting a name to it so that we have it recorded, and so that somebody 20 years from now can pull it out and be like, well, yo, look, there's actually these numbers like tell a different story, or these numbers explain this, or it gives us a way to better understand the information that we're looking at. So
I agree with you. I have learned to understand where you guys coming from. Like, even though, like I said, that was the first impression I had of you guys when I first met, people like yourself, because I didn't grow up around that. People didn't just talk the way you guys talk. When you guys talk to me, it's intellectual, but it's in a way that it's also informational. I'm just like, all right, let me give you just a quick little history lesson just so you know why a nigga's behaving the way he's behaving. You know what I'm saying?
Well, also too, like, I run a bookstore, so
yeah, of course.
I feel like,
and the thing is,
I love books. Yeah, like, I love books. I love information. So I love the archives.
You like a lot of self-help books?
I haven't been reading any lately, but I would definitely love to know about a good one.
I don't really like self-help books personally. Oh, okay. I'm a fiction guy, sci-fi, adventure, anything to take me to outworldly places. You know what I'm saying?
That's totally me too.
Yeah, I love all of that. To me, it's like you can put yourself in a character's shoes and live it first person. It's like
Escape. You're living it's like watching a movie.
Exactly.
That's what I love.
That's what I love. Like right now I'm reading the 50s book. I've been reading a whole lot about I'm reading a lot of books about authors that I grew up listening to. Like 50, Rose came out, Kevin Hart came out, Tiffany Haddish came out. I read all of their books and I'm realizing the same kind of theme in the sense of, going through their own adversities, but still not allowing that to stop them from their drive. And I feel like that's where a lot of the creatives in the city of Boston that we live in are going through. But I'm also realizing that you guys have more, the friendships are now giving out more resources. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not hoarding the information. You're like, nah, yo, I did this, that, and the third. Especially your type of creative. I ain't talking about musicians. I'm talking about people who actually like freelance work and like don't have like a quote unquote, 401k type situation. Like, you gotta live through your artistry.
Well, now a bitch is 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Before I was, so I do kind of have a 401k situation.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You know.
Yeah, I know. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank you today. I want to thank you today for the conversation. You really opened my eyes to a lot of things and just helped me understand things a little better. That was the main reason why I wanted to talk to you, have this conversation, because, you know, we see each other a lot, but we never really get to really like discuss things. You know, we're all, you know, we're just having a party and having a good time. This ain't really the time to be getting deep and serious. But so I want to thank you for being who you are. And yo, anything that you write normally, if I see it on the gram or on Twitter, I like to read it because it just gives me a different perspective on things. You know, you and Teresa helped me, Teresa, Amanda Shea, and all of them. Y'all be killing the fucking game. You know what I'm saying? It's always a learning moment. And I love it because, like I said, this is a world that I'm not used to. You know what I'm saying? I've been kind of closed off from things, you know, for a long time in my life. Though now that I'm in this circle and experiencing new people, new people, new minds, it's dope to see that you guys actually have like grew up with this mentality. Like, nah, we're gonna help each other by knowing the information, so to help the future that's coming about. Yeah. So let everybody know where they can reach you at. You know, if they want, if they're all your socials and all that other shit.
So my socials are all the same. Twitter and Instagram is at Bonita Afrobum. It's BONITAFROBUM.
Okay.
And from there you can contact me, DM me, but don't hit me up asking me to write about your music because I'm not writing right now. Just putting that out there. My brain is just like so like I not have time to write. So, but if you need help, you know, I'm still also offering like virtual like Zoom sessions for artists who need help with press kits, or maybe even writing their artist statement, or even knowing how to reach out to media and pitch your music. So I am still offering like I can do like I don't know how to set it up, but I guess a consultation. So I'm still kind of doing like these webinars. So you can totally hit me up about that, but don't hit me up to ask her about write about your music. Let's talk about getting your press kit, you know,
together
and
first.
Whatever else. And then.
I have one last question actually. Where'd you get your that name Bonita from? The whole thing. Where'd you get that from?
Tribe Called Quest.
Okay. Oh yeah, but in Apple Bottom.
I just changed it to Afro because at the time I started my, I don't know, I've had it for years, and at the time I had just started going natural, and I was like embracing my Afro and shit. So.
Hell yeah, now I feel you.
Yeah, I changed it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Arielle.
Thank you, Show.
Now this was dope. You too. Holla at you.
Thank you.